Book Treasure Island, Chapter 6, The Plan. The next morning, I was awake by the sound of loud voices. "Flag of truce!" someone shouted. Then, that's Silver. I got up and rubbed my eyes, and sure enough, two men stood just outside the stockade, and one of them was waving a white cloth, and the other was Silver himself. "Stay inside," said the captain. 10-1, this is a trick. And then he shouted to the buccaneers, "Who goes there? Stand or work fire." "Flag of truce!" cried Silver. "What do you want with your flag of truce?" Captain Smollett shouted back. "Captain Silver wishes to make terms," the other man called out. "Captain Silver?" asked the captain. "I don't know him. Who's he?" John Silver answered, "Me, sir. These poor lads have chosen me to be the captain. That was after your desertion, sir. We are willing to submit if we can come to terms. No bones about it." Captain Smollett agreed to meet with Silver, and only Silver. So Silver threw his crutch over the fence, got a leg up, and with great vigor and skill he climbed over the fence and dropped onto the other side. "Well, now," he said, "that was a good scare you gave us last night. We had lost some men, but you mark me, Captain, it won't work twice," said Silver. "We want the treasure, and we are going to have it. You would just as soon save your lives, I reckon. We want the map. So if you hand it over, we will do you no harm." "Not a chance," replied the captain. "Give us the map," said Silver, "and stop shooting the poor seamen. If you do that, we'll give you a choice. You can come aboard with us once the treasure is stowed away, and I will give you my word of honor to put you ashore someplace safe. Or, if it ain't to your fancy, you can just stay here, and we can divide the supplies with you, and I'll send the first ship I see to pick you up." Is that all? Captain Smollett asked. Now you hear me. If you come up one by one, unarmed, I'll clap you in irons and take you home to a fair trial in England. If not, it won't end well for you. Silver looked at the captain. "Give me a hand up," he cried. "Not me," said Captain Smollett. "Who'll give me a hand up?" Silver roared. Not one moved. Silver had to crawl along the sand until he got close to the door and could hoist himself up on his crutch. Then he spat into the spring. "Before an hour's out, I'll knock your old house. Them that die will be the lucky ones," he cried. As soon as Silver left the stockade, we returned to our posts and loaded our muskets. There were several small holes in the walls of the log house. We peered out through the holes, and waited for the onslaught. "Put out the fire," shouted the captain. "We mustn't have smoke in our eyes." Suddenly, a loud cry and a group of pirates leaped from the woods on the north side and ran straight toward the stockade. And at the same time, gunfire started from the woods, and a ball came through the doorway and knocked the doctor's musket to bits. The pirates climbed over the fence, kind of like monkeys. We fired at them, and immediately 3 of them fell to the ground. 4 others over the fence and came forward. In an instant, they were upon us. "All hands," one of the pirates said in a voice of thunder. One pirate took Hunter's musket and took it out of his hands. With one blow, he laid poor Hunter senseless on the ground. Meanwhile, another pirate appeared in the doorway and came onto the doctor with his cutlass. The house was filled with smoke and cries and confusion. Flashes and the reports of gunshots rang out. "Out, lads, and fight 'em in the open," cried Captain Smollett. He roared and raised his cutlass, and I leaped to one side and rolled headlong down I'm missing a page. Another pirate, Gray, followed close behind me and took down Job Anderson before he had time to recover. Another pirate was shot while firing into the house, and the doctor had taken down a third. Of all the pirates who made it over the fence, only one remained, and he had seen enough. He dropped his cutlass and clambered back over the fence, and in 3 seconds, nothing remained of the attacking party but those who had fallen. I ran full speed back to the house. It was somewhat cleared of smoke, and I assessed the price we had paid for victory. Hunter lay on the ground, stunned. Joyce had been killed, and in the center, Squire was holding up the captain, one as pale as the other. "The captain's wounded," said Mr. Trelawney. "Oh, have the pirates run?" asked Captain Smollett. "All that could," returned the doctor, "but there are some that will never run again." "Oh, good. That's good," cried the captain. "That means fewer men. That's better odds than when we started." The mutineers did not return. They had had enough, and we were able to tend our wounded and get some food. After dinner, the doctor grabbed his hat, his pistols, and a cutlass. He slipped the map in his pocket and climbed over the fence, and he set it off briskly through the trees. "Is he mad?" Gray asked me. I didn't think him capable of doing such a thing, I said. "I bet he's going to see Ben Gunn." I was right, as I found out later. But in the meantime, I had another thought. This house was stifling. I began to envy the doctor, walking in the cool shadows of the woods. I wanted to escape and set about gathering supplies for my own excursion. So I filled both of my pockets with biscuits and took 2 pistols to arm myself. As for another scheme I had in my head, it was not a bad one in itself. I would go down to the shore and look for Ben Gunn's boat. I knew it was wrong to slip out when nobody was watching, but I was only a boy, and I was determined. While the Squire and Gray were busy helping the captain with his bandages, I bolted into the woods, and before it was noticed, I was out of earshot of my companions. This is my second foolish decision, and it was far worse than the first one. For there's only 2 honest men that were left to guard the house. Much like the first time, I did it for the good of us all. I headed up the coast of the island, and after a while, I came out into the open and saw the sea lying blue and sunny, and the surf tumbling as its foam along the beach. In the distance, I could see the Hispaniola. And the Jolly Roger was waving in the breeze. The sun was setting, and it grew dark in earnest. I knew I must lose no time if I were to find Ben Gunn's boat that evening. The White Rock was still further down the sandy spit, and it took a while to get to it. Below the rock was a little hollow, and tucked away inside, covered with an old sackcloth, was Old Gun's boat. It was a homemade boat with a lopsided frame of wood and lined with goat skin. It was extremely small, even for me, but it was light and portable. I thought the mutineers might be planning to raise anchor and sail away, and I wondered how I might be able to prevent this. Maybe I could paddle out in Ben's boat under the cover of night, cut the ship loose, and her drift toward the shore. I waited for darkness. As the last rays of daylight disappeared, absolute darkness settled over Treasure Island, and I shoved Ben Gunn's boat out of the hollow. The little coracle was a safe boat for someone my size, but she was most difficult craft to manage. Turning round and round was the maneuver that she was best. She turned in every direction. but the one I wanted to go, the one that I chose. However, by good fortune, the tide swept me down to where the Hispaniola was anchored. As I drew near, I could hear loud voices in the cabin. One I recognized is Israel Hands. He was having a disagreement with a different pirate. Both men were angry, and oaths flew like hailstones. I quietly rode up next to the Hispaniola. Cut the ropes. That kept the ship anchored in place. The Hispaniola drifted free in the current. To my surprise, the coracle suddenly lurched. She seemed to change course, and speed strangely increased. I realized I was being whirled along by the wake of the Hispaniola. The current turned at right angles, sweeping the tall schooner and the little coracle out to sea. Not knowing what to do, I just laid at the bottom of my boat. Surely this would be my final day. I must have lain there motionless for some time. But then, even in the middle of my fear, weariness overcame me and I fell asleep. When I awoke, it was broad daylight. I found myself moving about in the boat in the southwest part of Treasure Island. I was barely a quarter mile from the shore, and my first thought, maybe I'll paddle in. But soon I saw a problem with my idea. The coast was rocky, and powerful waves crashed against the rocks. If I tried to land, I might be dashed to death upon the rough shore. I attempted to paddle to a safer landing spot along the cape, but there's no use. Try as I might, the current carried the oracle past the cape. Then I saw a sight that changed the nature of my thoughts. There's the Hispaniola. I knew there were at least a few pirates on board, but I couldn't see any of them. To and fro, up and down. The ship sailed by swoops and dashes. It's like nobody was steering. I thought, maybe the pirates deserted the ship. Or maybe they were sleeping. I figured if I could get aboard, I could return the ship to the captain. So I set myself to paddle, and I did so until I drew up alongside the ship. And the bowsprit was just over my head. I sprang to my feet, jumped up, pushing the oracle underwater. With one hand, I caught the jibboom, and I pulled myself up onto the deck of the Hispaniola. At first, I didn't see a soul. However, on the deck, I discovered 2 men who had been left to watch the ship. One was on his back, a little further sat Israel Hands. He was sitting against the ship wall, right here, with his chin on his chest. His hands lay open, and his face was as white as a candle. I saw the signs of a fight, and I felt sure the 2 men had killed each other. But just then, Israel Hands, opened his eyes, and he saw me. He said 2 words. Oh, help me.